My first thought after beating Super Mario RPG for the Nintendo Switch was, do we need this? A while ago I made a video on my channel that, while making it, completely changed my opinion on remasters and remakes of old video games. The synopsis being that I personally prefer modern-day remasters and remakes over straight re-releases or ports of previous games. Yet, I stand here looking at this remaster asking myself, is this necessary? To answer this question, we need to break down the positives, negatives, and compare them both practically to come up with the answer. Super Mario RPG was one of the last Super Nintendo games ever made, with the Nintendo 64 and Super Mario 64 releasing within 1 month of it coming out. This hurt both the sales and word of mouth of the game, as before the explosion of the internet, you had to either be in the know about games or willing to spend the money you're saving up for Mario 64 on this dying console title. To me, it's a game that's well deserving of a modern day remaster, and on such a popular console like the Switch, where millions can now have the opportunity to play or replay such a rich game. I nearly cried when this remaster was announced, because as a fan of the entire Mario RPG series, I feel like this game is forgotten and left out of various discussions due to it lacking the word paper in its title. Getting the game into my own hands, I was delighted to the lengths Nintendo went to preserve so much of the original game. For the most part, the only change made to the game was its updated modern 3D models instead of pre-rendered 3D sprites, as well as HD backgrounds and textures instead of the standard definition static photo backdrops we have of the original. The only flaw I had with the original is I personally found its mechanics unbalanced at times, finding myself grinding on occasion, making sure I ran into every single enemy I came across for experience. The remaster fixes this and does it well. During my playthrough, I didn't feel the need to grind and only ran into enemies whenever I ran into enemies and not going out of my way for any of them. Yet, I always felt adequately leveled at boss fights, having a fun time tackling the challenge. Unfortunately, this is where the changes end, and it's this strict faithfulness to the original that also causes my problems with the game. The overworld mechanics remain the same 8-dimensional isometric controls despite having fully 3D rendered characters. It doesn't feel right when the controller is in your hands. They also remade the original Japanese game art as the modern day box art. I've always felt that the Japanese art is the weakest part of the Super Mario RPG package, as it's just the characters staring blankly at some fixed point in a void of white. I have always found the American artwork to be better, and at the very least Nintendo should have included it on the inside as a reversible cover than behind a Club Nintendo Platinum coin paywall for you to print out on your own. We now live in a world where Mario and Zelda speak, and voice acting for RPGs has become standard, so I'm surprised this remaster does not have any voice acting. I understand the mile-high logistical stack of nightmares that it might be to do this, but they're charging full price for a remaster. It's not unreasonable to ask for. I understand the importance of sticking to the original style this game has, and how voice acting can take you out of this, but it's something that could be toggled. They obviously thought of this when they remastered the soundtrack, giving the player an on-off toggle switch, as the remastered OST may take some players out of the experience, and the same toggle switch could have been added for voice acting. Let's speak practical for a moment. The Switch is near the end of its life. Most of Nintendo's staff is working on the next big thing, and a remaster of a Super Nintendo title for Switch's last holiday season that only a small portion of your staff needs to work on is an excellent idea. And as fans, we shouldn't set high expectations and be grateful that we get such a classic title. But what keeps me up at night is what this could have been. You could have the same amount of staff spend the same amount of time and effort on a new idea or new entry in a beloved series. F-Zero and Mother come to mind specifically, But even an original idea that's Pushmo size and quality would be nice. Even if they were to do remaster, there are other games I feel are more deserving, as Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo can still hold its own today, as the Switch remaster that hardly diverts from it shows, where other games could use the touch-up. Yet, when I think about it, it's Super Mario RPG's shorter length and the fact that there isn't much that needs to change about it that caused it to be picked. Any of the pipe dream suggestions I listed probably wouldn't have sold as well or gotten done in time, and might even have been scratched. When I think of all this, I ask myself, do we need this? My answer is yes. All things considered, Super Mario RPG for the Switch is the best possible outcome and shines light on a title commonly overlooked. This may seem off track, but bear with me here. Chrono Cross The Radical Dreamers Edition is the best remaster remake I've ever played. It's a re-release, but they decompress the in-game assets to make them pop, and everything comes through clearer. They also touched up the script where needed, and it has luxuries like fast-forward skip battles, auto-win battles, and a remastered soundtrack. It also throws in the never-before-released in the States visual novel that helps connect it to its predecessor, all at a discounted price. I mention this because I don't have to come up with a wish list of what I want a remaster or remake to look like. I can just point to this game. I don't want to end a video without giving constructive criticism, even if who I'm giving it to is the biggest video game company in history, because I know that is what I would want for myself. See, I suffer from a minor form of OCD, and I think about my YouTube scripts over and over before I record. I intentionally make my scripts controversial because I've thought long and hard about it, and I know that what I'm saying is my opinion. I want more than ever for someone to tell me that I'm wrong and say something that will change my mind on the subject. In my real life, I'm surrounded by normal people who are understanding but just don't get this nerdy stuff that I'm into, so I am unable to bounce my ideas off them. As a micro-sized YouTuber without much of any following, nothing hurts worse than putting all this thought and effort into a video to get little to no comments. There was a moment recently where I was feeling particularly lonely with my thoughts when a fellow YouTuber named Cypress TV saw one of my videos and reached out to me. He invited me onto his podcast, and I won't lie, it's the first time I really haven't felt alone in this YouTube world, and for one night, I felt connected to others in this community. I want to personally thank Cypress TV for reaching out to me, and more importantly, being genuine with me. I will link the video for this podcast down below. Ironically, the podcast was about video games in 1996, and when asked what my favorite game of 1996 was, I only had one answer.